I was standing at the altar in front of 150 people when they gave me this note. I didn't get left at the altar with a dramatic speech. I got left with a sticky note. One pale yellow square. One rushed sentence. One signature that looked like she wrote it while walking away. And the craziest part? I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I just folded the note, put it in my suit pocket, and walked out like my heart wasn't splitting down the middle in front of everyone I loved. 7 days later, the true love she bragged about turned into a public circus so ugly, even strangers felt embarrassed for her. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. My name is Oliver Romano. I'm 29, and I'm a civil engineer for a regional infrastructure firm based in Manchester. I went to university in Sheffield, moved west after graduation, and spent the last 7 years building a life that was solid. Not flashy. Not viral. Not look at me. Just stable. I bought a modest terraced house in Stockport. I drove a 2016 Ford Ranger that I'd paid off early because I hate debt. My weeks were full of site visits and drainage designs, road widening projects, planning meetings where people argue about curb heights like it's life or death. My weekends were predictable in the best way. Saturdays, house projects and DIY runs to B&Q. Sundays, mountain biking trails in the Peak District, where your brain goes quiet because the only thing that matters is the line you're choosing down a rocky descent. Calm, clean, no chaos. And then I met Hannah. It was summer 2020 at a wedding outside Chester. I was a groomsman for a mate from uni. Hannah was a bridesmaid. She had auburn hair that caught the light like copper, green eyes, and a smile that made you look twice without meaning to. At the reception, we got stuck in the same corner near the bar while people argued about the playlist and somebody's uncle tried to start a conga line. Hannah laughed at my dry jokes. I liked her energy, warm, bright, slightly too honest in a way that felt refreshing instead of messy. She told me she taught year 4 in a primary school in Altrincham and loved long walks, proper coffee, and a life that doesn't feel like a constant panic. That line stayed with me. After years of dating women who treated relationships like a hobby they'd eventually abandon, Hannah felt like a person who actually wanted to build something. Our first proper date was a walk up to Mam tour. 4 hours of talking about families, careers, 5-year plans. She said she wanted marriage, children, a home that felt safe. I wanted the same thing. And it all fit so easily it felt almost suspicious. By 3 months she was spending more nights at my place than her own. Her parents met me before Christmas and were weirdly welcoming. Her father, Vincent, a semi-retired accountant who'd gotten obsessed with carpentry, taught me how to use a proper planer without losing a finger. Her mother, Rosie, would load me up with leftovers like I was a starving orphan every time we visited. They kept dropping hints about rings and grandchildren like they were planting seeds. And I didn't mind. Because by spring 2022, I knew I wanted to marry her. I spent £6,800 on a platinum ring with a 1.1 carat center stone. I had it custom made based on the Pinterest board she didn't realize she'd shown me, accidentally, left open on her tablet one day. I proposed in October 2022 at sunset, at a lookout we'd been to a dozen times in the Peaks. She cried, said yes, and rang her mum before she'd even stopped shaking. And then the wedding planning began. Hannah had apparently been mentally planning her wedding since she was 7. Within 3 days she had colors. Within 2 weeks she had a venue. Within a month, everything was booked with military precision. The date? May 20th, 2023. Venue? A pretty country place near Buxton, stone walls and wildflower fields and a barn that looked like it came from a magazine. Every detail had a spreadsheet. The cake. The flowers. The photographer. The DJ. The seating plan that made my head hurt just looking at it. Hannah didn't want nice. She wanted flawless. And for a while it felt like we were on the same team, building, planning, moving forward. Until about 6 weeks before the wedding. That's when something shifted. It wasn't dramatic at first. Just wrong. She started checking her phone constantly. She became vague about where she'd been. She'd come home late with excuses that sounded rehearsed. Staff meeting, parent call, end-of-term chaos. Then she said a name I hadn't heard in years. Callum. Her ex from 6th form. The kind of ex people mention like a harmless ghost. Oh, Callum's back in town, she said one night while we were addressing invitations. We should invite him. He's part of the old group. I didn't like it. But I didn't want to be that guy, the insecure fiancé policing friendships. So I said fine. That decision was the first crack in the wall. A coffee catch-up turned into lunches. Lunches turned into quick drives to help him move boxes. Then it became constant messages. She'd smile at her screen in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in weeks. She stopped reaching for my hand. If I hugged her, she'd stiffen like I'd interrupted her concentration. 3 weeks before the wedding, she said something that froze me. "Have you ever wondered if we're getting married for the right reasons?" I remember staring at her like she'd spoken another language. "What do you mean?" She shrugged like it was casual. "Like, are we doing this because we're really right for each other, or because it would be embarrassing to cancel now?" That word, embarrassing, hit harder than it should have. Then she said, almost like she was quoting someone, "Callum says people settle for safety when they're too scared to chase passion." There it was. A sixth form ex giving marriage advice 3 weeks before my wedding. I told her that was ridiculous. That if she was having doubts, we should talk, properly, without Callum's voice in the middle of our relationship. She called me controlling. I said she was being emotionally unfaithful. We didn't speak for 2 days. Then she came back, apologized, blamed stress, said it would all feel better after the wedding. And I wanted to believe her. Because I was still the man who thought love could outwork a problem. The rehearsal dinner was on a Friday. About 40 people. Both families. Bridesmaids and groomsmen. Everyone telling us how perfect we were. Hannah barely ate. She kept glancing at her phone like it was ticking. That night, back at my place, her mobile buzzed while she was in the bathroom. I never snooped. Not once in our entire relationship. But something in me, some survival instinct, moved my hand without permission. The message preview said, "Callum, are you sure you're ready? You don't have to do this if it doesn't feel right. I never stopped loving you." My stomach didn't twist. It dropped. I put the phone back exactly where it was and sat there, staring at the wall like it might explain what my life had become. The next morning, Hannah left early to get ready with the bridesmaids. She kissed my cheek and said, "I love you. I'll see you at the altar." I watched her walk away and didn't realize that was the last time I'd ever see her as my fiancée. At 2:55 p.m. I was standing at the front of the venue, looking at a room full of smiling faces. The string quartet played. Flowers filled the space. Guests leaned forward with that expectant wedding glow. Bridesmaids walked down the aisle. Then, nothing. The doors stayed shut. No bride. No music cue. No movement. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The murmurs started spreading like smoke. My best man Tom leaned in and whispered, "Mate, what's happening?" I didn't know. Then the wedding coordinator appeared, walking toward me with the posture of someone delivering bad news to a terminal patient. She held out a small yellow square. A sticky note. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I knew Hannah's handwriting immediately. Said Oliver, "I can't do this. Callum and I are leaving together. He's my true love and I can't marry you knowing that. I'm sorry. Please tell everyone I'm sorry." That was it. One tiny square of paper. One sentence that detonated my entire life in front of 150 people. I read it twice. Then a third time. Because part of me refused to accept reality without confirmation. I looked up. Her parents were in the front row, faces wrecked. My mum looked like she might stand up and fight God. My dad's jaw was locked so tight I thought he'd crack a tooth. People were waiting for a scene. For me to collapse. To scream. To beg. Instead, I folded the note carefully, slid it into my pocket, and turned to the guests. "There won't be a wedding today," I said, voice steady. "Hannah has chosen a different path. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry for wasting your time." I paused. "The reception is already paid for. Please stay, eat, drink. Don't waste good catering." And then I walked down the aisle alone. Straight out of the venue. Into my truck. And drove home. I didn't go to the reception. I didn't answer calls. I didn't give anyone a chance to turn my humiliation into a group discussion. I changed out of my suit, threw clothes into a bag, and drove north to a cabin that belonged to my mate Alfie, tucked near Keswick in the Lake District where signal was rubbish and nobody could check in on me without physically showing up. I texted Tom one line, "I'm alive. I need a few days. Tell everyone not to worry." Then I turned my phone off. For 4 days it was just me, cold air, quiet hills, and the kind of silence that forces you to sit with your own thoughts. I chopped wood. I walked until my legs burned. I sat on the porch and watched the sky go orange behind the fells. I didn't cry. Not because I was strong. Because my brain felt like it had stepped outside my body. Like I was watching this happen to someone else. By day 3, something sharpened in my mind. Hannah did me a favor. Better to see who she was before legal papers and shared mortgages. Better to survive a public humiliation than spend a lifetime married to someone who could be persuaded out of love by a nostalgia fantasy. By day 4, the anger arrived. Not explosive. Cold. Because leaving was one thing. Leaving me at the altar with a sticky note? That wasn't confusion. That was cruelty. On Thursday afternoon, I turned my phone on. I had hundreds of missed calls. Messages from my parents. My mates. Her parents. People I barely knew. Then I got a message from Tom that made me sit down. You won't believe this. Hannah and Callum showed up at the reception. I stared at the words like they couldn't possibly be real. Tom sent a voice note. They walked in like guests, Ollie. Like nothing happened. She'd changed into a summer dress. He was in jeans. They got in the food queue. Vincent spotted them first and went absolutely nuclear. Rosie was crying. Callum tried to say something about following his heart, and, this is not a joke, your cousin Ellie threw a bread roll at his head. Security dragged them out. Hannah tried to make a speech. Someone threw punch on her. Then, the vibe shifted. People started laughing because it was so unreal. And everyone started saying you dodged a bullet. The open bar helped. I listened to the voice note 3 times. The audacity. The complete lack of shame. They didn't just blow up a wedding. They tried to celebrate themselves in the rubble like the main characters of a romance film. And that's when I stopped feeling sad. Because sadness implies loss. What I realized was, I hadn't lost anything real. I'd lost a performance. When I came back to Manchester, Hannah tried to contact me. Texts, calls, emails, messages through friends. She wrote things like, please understand this isn't against you. Callum and I have something rare and beautiful. Everyone is being cruel. We just want to be happy. I didn't reply. I blocked. One by one. Her friends started chiming in with their moral lectures. Take the high road, wish her well, sometimes people grow apart. I blocked them too. Because I wasn't about to be emotionally managed by people who watched me get humiliated and still thought my job was to be graceful about it. A week after the non-wedding, I visited Hannah's parents. Not to beg. Not to negotiate. To close a door properly. Vincent looked like he'd aged 10 years in 7 days. Rosie couldn't stop crying. They apologized until words meant nothing. Then Vincent handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for £18,000, half the wedding costs. I tried to refuse. He shook his head hard. That money was for our daughter's dream, he said. And she chose to destroy you in front of everyone. You won't carry that loss too. I took it, not with pride but because I knew refusing wouldn't undo what happened. As I left, Rosie touched my arm. You're a good man, Oliver. One day she'll understand what she lost. I nodded. But I already knew the truth. Understanding comes too late for people who treat love like entertainment. Hannah's fairy tale didn't last. Not even close. The first crack was money. Callum wasn't some successful, stable soulmate. He was drifting between short-term contracts, big talk, and business ideas that never became anything. Hannah quit her teaching job in a dramatic wave. She claimed the school was judging her. But the real reason was simpler. She couldn't handle the whispers. The looks. The fact that adults who teach children are expected to have basic integrity. Then the story escaped their control. Callum posted smug captions online about choosing real love. Hannah reposted them like they were poetry. And then, like karma using Wi-Fi, Callum's ex from Bristol commented on one of the posts. Interesting. You told me we were soulmates 2 months ago. Guess you reuse lines. Good luck to her. That comment went everywhere. People started connecting dates. Screenshots surfaced. Turns out Callum hadn't returned to town for closure. He returned because he'd been juggling multiple women and needed a new stable landing spot. Hannah wasn't his destiny. She was his next option. Then the ex-girlfriend did something worse for Hannah than any insult. She showed up. Not to fight. To retrieve her things Callum took when he moved. She arrived at their flat in Northern Quarter, looked Hannah up and down and said, calmly, "Oh love, you actually believed him." Then she showed Hannah messages. Word for word identical to the ones he'd sent Hannah. Same rare connection. Same, never stopped loving you. Same, you're the only one who understands me. Hannah tried to defend him. But doubt is a seed. Once planted it grows. She started checking his phone while he slept. Dating apps. Messages with other women. Flirtations. And the final hit? Messages between Callum and one of Hannah's own bridesmaids. A woman who had helped zip Hannah into a wedding dress Hannah never wore. The fight was loud enough that neighbors called the police. Callum left that night. And he didn't come back. That's when Hannah called me. New number. Broken voice. Oliver, please. I ruined my life. I've got no one. I stood in my kitchen staring at the wall while my kettle boiled. Hannah, I said, I'm not your emotional support anymore. You chose this. She sobbed. I lost my job. My friends hate me. My parents barely speak to me. Callum left me with nothing. That's the cost, I said. You paid it willingly. Can you forgive me? She whispered. Silence sat between us. Then I answered the only honest way I could. 3 years meant something, until you decided it didn't. Is there any chance? She asked, desperation spilling into every word. No, I said. Not coffee. Not closure. Not friendship. Not redemption. Not anything. She choked on a sob. You were stable. You were good. I threw it away for a fantasy. Yes, I said. You did. Then I hung up, blocked the number, and for the first time in months I felt relief. Not because she suffered. Because I finally stopped carrying her consequences like they were mine. My life didn't become perfect overnight, but it became mine again. I poured myself into work, took on a major road project near Salford, 60-hour weeks, early mornings, constant site meetings. I trained before sunrise, lifted until my muscles stopped shaking, ran until my brain went silent. Then I got pulled into a mountain biking group that met every Saturday in the peaks. Nobody there knew my story. To them, I was just another bloke trying not to fall off a ridge. That neutrality healed me more than sympathy ever could. I sold the engagement ring for £4,200. Didn't hesitate. Used it for a new bike suspension setup and a trip to Snowdonia with the group, 5 days of trails, cold wind, and laughs that didn't require me to explain anything. That trip felt like a reset, a ritual, a line in the dirt between old life and new. And sometime that autumn I met Sophie. She wasn't loud. She didn't perform. She had a calm steadiness that made you feel like the world didn't have to be dramatic to be real. Sophie worked for a conservation charity, often out in Northumberland tracking wildlife and managing habitat projects. She drove an old battered Suzuki Jimny and carried snacks like she was permanently prepared for a surprise hike. Our first date was a sunrise walk near Edale. No selfies. No posting. No prove we're happy. Just a thermos of coffee and silence that felt comfortable instead of awkward. By Christmas we were official. And for the first time, I understood the difference between love and attention. Love is who shows up when nobody's watching. Attention is what people chase when they don't know who they are without an audience. A year after the wedding that never happened, I ran into Vincent and Rosie at home base. They looked tired but lighter than before. Vincent asked quietly, "Are you happy?" I looked over at Sophie comparing paint samples like it was serious business. "Yes," I said. "I really am." Rosie nodded, tears in her eyes, but she didn't make it about herself. "She asks about you sometimes," Rosie admitted. "She wants to know if you're doing well." I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt distance. Like hearing about someone who used to live in your street but moved away years ago. "I hope she finds peace," I said honestly. "But I'm not part of that journey." Vincent exhaled like he'd been holding a weight. "That's fair," he said. And it was. People think being left at the altar breaks you. It doesn't. What breaks you is staying loyal to someone who's already halfway out the door. What breaks you is begging for love from a person who confuses stability with boredom. Hannah didn't ruin my life. She revealed the truth before it was too late. And if you're listening to this and you've been betrayed, humiliated, made to feel like a placeholder in your own story, hear me. Sometimes the most brutal moment is also the most merciful. Because it ends the illusion. And when the illusion dies, you finally get your life back. I didn't get closure from her. I got closure from myself. From the moment I folded that note, put it in my pocket, and walked out without giving her the satisfaction of seeing me break. Some people leave you at the altar because they think you'll chase them. I didn't chase. I rebuilt. And that's why I won.